Hello, everyone, and welcome back to This Week in Guns, powered by Second Amendment Foundation and brought to you by Patriot Patch Company, VZGrips, MAF Corporation for Patriot Food, and Primary Arms. This show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Matthew LaRosiere, and I'm joined here by a rat with image stabilization turned all the way on.
That's true. I put the rat. I didn't know what to do for the rat, and so I put him in there, and then I told him to image stabilize, and it sure didn't image stabilize it, but it made it do look like the rat found the Adderall stash. And the doctor's instruction said, 1, take by mouth every 24 hours. So we put the whole thing up his ass. It didn't say not to. So he's fine with it.
No, yeah, it looks like he found the Adderall and the Midol and got confused.
He's trying to level off by taking incrementally large amounts of both.
That's pretty good. Well, guys, what did we talk about last time? We talked about how, the president was promising that he was going to veto. We talked about the president promising that he was going to veto the pistol brace repeal bill that was, Oh my God.
Goddamn terrorist.
Quiet dogs, please. Shut up.
Quiet in the cheap seats.
Can we just pick this one up? All right. And the other one continues. All right. We were talking about how the president was promising to veto this pistol brace ban repeal bill, that was going forth under the Congressional Review Act. And we were kind of talking about how that would actually, this thing passing would be the bad end, right?
Yep.
And then the Senate just rejects it. Senate says, no thanks.
They sure did.
Yep, in a party line vote. And of course, what's interesting isn't the normal politic lizardry here. It's kind of some of the names that you saw actually voting against it.
Right.
To me, so it was a 50-49 vote. One of them was sick, and so he couldn't vote. But for me, the big surprise was Munchie Manchin, Joe Manchin, voting against it.
Yeah, that was. I don't want to say it was unexpected, but it was still a little surprising.
Well, especially the way he talked about it, saying that this SBR regulation is a life-saving protection that Congress implemented almost a century ago.
No, it just plain old fucking isn't.
Yeah, despite, of course, 1, it wasn't that long ago, and 2, it was like a total accident, and the government has repeatedly accidentally put short rifles into the consumer market, and then instead of saying, "Oh, this is such a big mistake, we need to get those guns back," no, they just changed the law.
Like, yeah, whatever. Who cares?
Yeah. No, the SBR regulation was naked gap filler in what was intended to be a handgun regulation. And for those of you who don't know, the government surplused M1 carbines and put out like 20,000 of them before they realized, oh God, the NFA says if it's under 18 inches, it's it needs to have a tax stamp, and we just put all these out. So that's why it's 16 inches for rifles. Because they went, whoops,
and changed it real quick.
Yep. But yeah, so there was quite a few people who voted no, that were a little surprising, that were in hotly contested seats. So we got John Tester, Angus King from Maine. One time I went into that office, by the way, and they were asking for help writing a bill to open another machine gun amnesty. I don't think they understood what their donor was asking them for. Kristen Sinema, all voted against the resolution, and none of them responded to a request for comment on their votes.
What was it? I think Manchin ended up putting out a comment.
But he said, "Let me make this clear. The ATF rule does not take away anyone's Second Amendment rights, and it does not ban pistol braces in any form."
And that's why it's so important that we regulate them.
Rather, the rule clarifies that firearm manufacturers and dealers cannot circumvent life-saving protections that Congress implemented almost a century ago. The rule does nothing to prevent any law-abiding gun owner from purchasing and keeping a pistol brace. unless of course it's on your gun or near your gun.
It's a like next level head scratcher going on there. And of course this is all, especially the way that these, politic lizards are silver tonguing this is all the more reason that the real solution to this does truly come in the courts, because having Congress pass a thing and vote on a thing to repeal a thing that didn't require them vote to ban the thing in the first place. that's not how the solution comes about. The solution comes about from the courts reining them in. Now, there's a lot of way the courts could do this, and I know we theory crafted a little bit about this in prior episodes, but at the very least, it prevents the ATF from having any say about pistol braces from then on. Right. And I have a hard time imagining that it doesn't just become a de facto deregulation of SBRs. If they say that the ATF, they could get to the point where it actually has to be marketed and you admit it's used as a stock. Right. So you could really play the game of not touching them the way you'd want to then, because they'd lose their power to regulate these things, but for an act of Congress. So at the very least, that's what the courts could do. The courts could go all the way up to actual repeal, partial, or it would be great, full, some sort of full injunctive relief against the NFA and its provisions. But
several of the lawsuits asked for that, including ours.
Right, and so it's not, it may be unlikely, but it's not it's not impossible at this point. And what I would really, really, really like to see happen is this gets up to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court is able to rule on this on the same basis. Like what I'd really like is at or arguments, it to be brought up the fact that the NFA was meant to ban handguns. Handguns being the only arm, the only arm that is protected, and even the anti-gunners agree about this, right? The anti-gunners have come up in court and said, "Oh, but Heller says that handguns are the ones that are protected. You can own handguns. That's right." But if this ban was meant to go and originally meant to ban you from having handguns, well, now hang on.
And that's why I get so ticked off about the lizard tongues, silver tonguing on the opposite side too. All of these politics, they want to talk about service disabled veterans and all this.
Oh my gosh.
It's just no.
You can be honest. You can be honest. You can just in fact, this is the irony that I realized just this week, where everybody was like, oh, but only 0.6 to a maximum of 8% of people actually registered their braces. And I'm sitting here thinking 0.6 to 8% of people use their braces the way they're intended. Come on now. Right. Come on.
So, but instead of talking about it like that, which is inviting a weird, bizarre ADA argument, and people have kept bringing that up, and I'm like, no, that's just not how it works. Just talk about it for what it is, which is handgun control.
Right.
It's if you talk about this for what it is, we're just saying, hey, they're randomly saying that certain handguns put you in jail if you try to make them more accurate.
Yep.
Don't you want to be able to hit the thing? Right? That's how it should be being talked about. And you hear little snippets about that every once in a while, but for the repeatedly you hear this nonsense about the if you're going to sit there and say, make that service whatever disabled veteran argument, would you be happy with the result that said, okay, if you have your honorable discharge paperwork and your Purple Heart, you can have a pistol brace, but everyone else no?
That would not be a great outcome.
So why is everybody parroting that?
I don't know. It seems it's always struck me as somewhat counterproductive. Yeah. I mean, it's not to say that these people don't have a claim for relief.
They're trying to regulate good handguns.
That shouldn't be your sole claim for relief.
Yeah. Good handguns. Anyway.
Yeah, I need to be able to snipe with my Drake. Come on now.
I will. Any of you M1A losers, I will see you at the 100-yard line.
The 500-yard line.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it goes up. It goes up to 5. I will slap you there too. I do not care. Iron sights for iron sights, though.
I have a good M1A story. I have a good M1A story.
Go on.
I have a friend who had an M1A and he was out shooting it close to the first time. It locked shut with a round in the chamber, live round. pulled the trigger. It didn't fire. He couldn't get the bolt open. Like the bolt was stuck forward. We ended up beating it out, like doing a little bit of a mortaring. But like, you know, he drove over to my place and we got it out. But we ended up determining it was because the round was slightly past overall length and his is a national scratch. So it's got a tight chamber. And that's the problem with helical locking lugs is, you know, that it smashes whatever it is tight into the chamber.
Yeah.
So if you have a round that's slightly long,
it's getting screwed in.
It's getting screwed in. Yeah. And it won't want to come out very easily. And that's kind of nerve-wracking whenever it's a live round that you've already dropped the hammer on.
What kind of ammo is it?
Winchester. So
Winchester
in his national scratch.
You know, speaking of it, I just shot that the Spanish FR8.
Yeah.
And I was using I bought it from actually somebody we know, Coyote.
Yep.
And he shot it at 200 yards or whatever, said it did great. And I put Fiocchi through it, and this thing was shooting like 7 minutes at 100 yards. But I wasn't mad about it. I didn't buy it to, like, you know, as a
right.
You know, I bought it as a cool. It's like, how it's got set me sights, you know. But like, could it be that like Fiocchi ammunition is just that bad?
I have reason to believe their 7.62 by 39 is actually that bad.
Oh, really? So then maybe their 7.62 by 51 is just as bad. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go out with some good ammo, some of that Wolf Gold, and see how it prints. But it was like because I was shooting at the 200-yard gong, and I was like, "What? I'm just not getting consistent." I mean, I put paper up at 100 yards, and I even put it in a lead sled, right? Before everyone says, "Hoo, you can't shoot."
You're and right, like, but
from the lead sled, as I go to the target, and it's like, bam. Like, oh,
that'll explain it.
That times 2 means I'm not hitting the gun.
Yeah,
yeah. But you know what my favorite part of the FR8 is?
Oh,
you don't think about it, but it's got that funny the set me rear sight.
Yeah.
When you go to, it's like if you're used to shooting straight handle Mausers, you just grab that sucker.
Yeah.
It maims your pinky every time. It like took a chunk off.
There you go.
Yeah, so I can see why the FR8 was such a well-loved and adored training service rifle. But anyway, so let's go on. This is something that's kind of interesting, right? A lot of people on the pro-gun side, they like to see stories about armed people, you know, solving problems, you know? But why is it intellectually dishonest to say, you know, every time a good guy with a gun shoots a bad guy with a gun, that a mass notable Las Vegas was prevented?
Well, see, that's the tricky one, right? Because this is something that I've seen discussed on Twitter some, where
there was Vegas.
In fact, it was an actual Vegas where this happened. But before an individual is able to make it a mass casualty event, they get stopped. Mm-hmm. Is that a mass shooting? Was a mass shooting stopped? The anti-gun groups will say no because it doesn't fit their narrative. The media will often not include this because, again, it doesn't fit whatever narrative or agenda it is that they have. And there's multiple instances of this. I think that I think it was the Indiana mall shooting where the guy busted him down at 40 yards. I don't think that ended up counting as a mass shooting because the dude got clapped too quickly. This Vegas incident, dude got clapped too quickly.
Yeah, no, there he is. He comes in, shoots out the glass, and then gets turned right off.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
and the best part is, I believe he was shot in the back, which is just hilarious.
Oh, really?
I think the mass shooter got shot in the back. I thought that's what I'd heard anyway.
Yeah, and this is they're slow to release the good information, but yeah, it was a man wearing a helmet and carrying a rifle could be seen on video, apparently shooting through the lobby doors at Turnberry Towers late last week. But the video posted by a local Vegas News focused Twitter account shows he did not make it much farther before being confronted and shot by somebody else. Humberto, who works in receiving, is a hero. And because they didn't go on to disclose what Humberto's gun was, I think it's clear what it was.
Taurus Judge.
No. Humberto had the Drake.
God, that would if true, if true.
Have people been sending you that stupid, like it was the video by that, like one of Garen Thumb's employees where he tacked out a Draco and he like called it the Braco or something. And
it's
like,
funny. What's there's a Halo quote or something, a quote from Halo or something. Yeah, it's a great quote from Halo where it's like, "Don't cite the elder magic to me. I was there when it was created," or something like that. It's from Halo. John Halo says that to the Mr. Halo.
Yeah,
but Mr. Halo Senior, that is.
Right. Yeah, Mr. John Halo the first.
Yes,
but. Yeah, no, and when they're like, "Oh, look, they perfected the Draco," I was just like, wait. You wait and see what me and Ivan got cooking.
Oh, did they? Did they perfect it? Or we got something all that much more different?
Yeah, we got something a little bit more good. And somebody was like, "Is it because you put an optic on it?" And I just replied, "Yes." Speaking of which, listen, if you want to prevent a notable Las Vegas, you can't drop your gun.
That's right. True.
So you need to depend on VZGrips.com. VZGrips.com. They support the show and they offer a discount to you, our loyal viewers. Go ahead and use code ThisWeek15. That's THISWEEK15 for a discount on your order. See if they got any AK grips.
Do they make AK? Yeah, I was about to say, they make AK grips yet? Because they really need to. Yeah, they need to make a big, fat, chunky one for my meaty man hooks.
They make grips for the AR-15 and the SCAR.
Nice.
Oh, man. I always like to just check something out on here. What is a Rohrbach R9? Oh, apparently it wasn't good enough to stay.
Looks like a skill issue to me.
Yeah, Beretta Compacts, Beretta 92s. Well, how do you feel about the Beretta 92?
I really want to like it, but it's like, it's fat and it's heavy. I don't care for how they shoot. So some of them, like the nice ones that have nice triggers, I can't complain about the triggers, but like the couple that I've shot that were like sort of chewed on just a little bit, the triggers were like bad, like Glock level, heavy, nasty. And they had the ultimate sickness of the double action guns where like the take up is just as long as a Glock. And so why wouldn't I just be shooting a Glock? It doesn't make sense. Take up is
pretty long on them.
And so I don't personally care for them much. Now that said,
but you like the P99 and the P99 has like a comically long take up.
Yeah, it does. But like
the reset is nothing.
And it snaps straight through that take up. And if you snap it through that take up, it hangs back there.
Yeah.
Like you can like cock the trigger, which is kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah.
But with I haven't shot, of course, any of like the new, I guess it would all be like the US manufacturer 92s where it's
that's because we don't like
the ones with rails and can take dots or whatever. Yeah, I don't know about any of that.
No, we don't do US made guns. That's trash. Cope seethe and dilate cope section. Speaking of US made trash, like here, I'm just going to show you the picture. I know you already know what's coming, but for our audience, right? I'm going to really like, let's pretend like you're not going to believe. All right, speaking of trash, you're not going to believe this gun I'm going to show you here.
It's a really bad one.
Yep, that's the Palmetto State Armory 5 3/4 rock. It's a 5 3/4 millimeter rock. What do you think of that?
I hate 5.7 so much.
5.7 is a piece of shit.
Like I've talked about this. I think it was on the Art and War podcast. They had me on because they wanted me to talk about printed guns, and then I spent at least 30 minutes complaining about 5.7. They didn't have me back on. They didn't have me back on since. They claimed that they liked it at the time. And they didn't invite me back. So weird. But no, 5.7 from its very inception was set out to accomplish a goal that was already an obsolete goal, and they still had to sort of justify its existence. And so they justified it by the fact that, it accomplished a goal that was obsolete 10 years before the point that we were actually doing it. And then for whatever reason, it stuck around, except it wasn't adopted as widely as they wanted it to be. Like the original 5.7 load was a polymer core bullet in order for it to accomplish its goal that was already outdated. Right. It's a very insane history behind it. But then at the end of the day, what we were left with was the P90. And I don't want to rag on the P90 too much because at least it's somewhat of an interesting firearm because they did do something. It was a meta breaker. But the cartridge being designed around the P90 like kneecapped it, where it's straight wall but very long, which gives it extraction issues. So they used a dry film lubricant on the cases that's required for it to be able to.
The last time we saw majorly used was by the Japanese in World War II,
and it wasn't a good idea then either.
Like 276 Peterson. We'll just grease our cartridges. There's
NATO specifications for 5.7 that involve gluing bullets into cases rather than crimping them, which is insane. And there's just all sorts of trouble that you run into. Like 5.57, in my mind, was maybe a good idea. Horrible execution. And it was designed by a committee of NATO countries. And so there's no way that was ever going to go right. In fact, I don't think NATO has ever touched a cartridge, caliber or gun without making it bad. Like 223 was a great caliber, and then NATO adopts it with the 62 grain crap that the Belgians designed. It's terrible. It ruined it. It massively reduced the terminal ballistics of the round.
And then of course you had 308, in which NATO goes, you know what? I like 7.5 French. Let's just keep it here.
They crapped up a bunch of stuff is the point. And then at some point they want to cram 5.7 into a handgun, and so you're left with a handgun that's got like the longest grip imaginable. Like holding one just feels goofy,
feels wrong.
And then ballistically speaking, it's something that modern day is outperformed by 22 TCM in terms of muzzle energy. 9mm NATO can get you just about to what 5.7 does, and people will say, ooh, my armor piercing. Well, the armor penetrating stuff was never sold to civilians, right? Because it was the armor piercing ban was in place, and so there is some of it that's around, but very, very limited amounts. You're not able to.
And you're going to pay $1.8 million.
Right, you're going to pay $1 gazillion per trigger pull, and so there's whatever the SS 109 or 190 or whatever the fuck it is that's got the green tips on it. It's hollow point, but it's somewhat armor penetrating, and it can defeat some level 3As.
Yeah, which level 3A is not a standard of comparison.
Right. Level 3A, which is meant to stop 44 Magnum, it doesn't stop rifle threats. So sometimes it can defeat it, but also that ammo's expensive, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And then
let's look at this review from. So we talked about a few of those minor things that people bring up, which is stupid and wrong. And so let's look at this review from Recoil Magazine, right? Which is the ultimate firearms destination for the gun lifestyle. Soviet paratroopers hate this one trick.
Yes and no.
And then I love how they. And if you do expect to meet thugs in body armor, the 5.7 by 28 is a must-consider option. The Cold War was the best of time and the worst of time. On the upside, we had the space race, invented the Blackbird, and got movies like The Hunt for Red October. Downside, nuclear proliferation. Wow.
What does this have to do with the shitty gun?
Millival NATO asked for a new cartridge to replace the 9mm. And then it gets into the history that we just discussed.
Yeah, the primary goal was defeating Soviet body armor that paratroopers were wearing in Afghanistan. That said, the Russians found that armor to be wildly incapable, and so they significantly thickened it up, and it was all titanium plate based. Oxide on YouTube has a really great video delving deep into this, and I believe he compares the MP7's 4.6 to the 5.7 and the P90, and shows how neither of them could defeat the armor that the Russians were using at the time that they ended up being designed. Because so
they couldn't even beat the Russian bad armor.
Right. It's like I think he ended up having some of the rounds go through the armor that Russia was using in Afghanistan, but against the stuff that Russia was actually using
against goat herders.
The concern was that if Russia drops behind our back lines, we'll have to be able to shoot them. But if Russia had jumped through our back lines and P90s had actually been adopted en masse, you wouldn't have been able to shoot through them, and 9mm would have done just as nothing.
Well, it wouldn't have done nothing is the thing,
right?
Like, even if your plate completely captures the cartridge, you're experiencing a lot of unwell.
Yes.
Right? And that's something people seem to super forget.
Yes.
when you get tagged with a 9mm, even with a titanium plate, and you see this on the videos, people go down, right? They don't go down forever, but they go down and they make the funny noise. Ow, ow, ow. So I just think it's so stupid. I hate it. I hate the 5.7.
I don't hate the concept. I'll say I don't hate the concept, right? And I thought I hated the concept till I shot 22 TCM, and then I got it. I realized the concept. I realized the concept didn't have to be bad. The sub-caliber high velocity pistol thing. It's not just a meme. It is actually kind of cool and valid. But the correct way to do it is start with a parent case that is extant. Don't start with something proprietary. If you're going to require case lubrication, require nothing more than the cases be nickel plated, because the dry film lubricant stuff is just a bad idea. And it's going to have to fit in existing handguns. You can't use this crazy long magwell length that's like 7.62 Tokarev is the longest magwell length you should be requiring for anything, and that's already pretty darn long.
And by the way, 7.62 Tok works pretty good.
Longer than 45 ACP is silly. And so 22 TCM was designed to fit within 45 ACP's cartridge overall length. And of course, the only commercial loading for 22 TCM is like incredibly soft lead stuff, and it's all imported at this point. Right. And I'm sure the reason that it is such soft lead is I ended up having some copper solid 22 TCM projectiles made. It breezes straight through 3A, and I'm sure the reason they don't have FMJ getting imported is because it's import. It's subject to higher standards, higher scrutiny for getting approved, and it's definitely armor penetrating pistol ammo from a standpoint of what they consider for import, because it breezes through 3A.
Yeah, and it is more pleasant to shoot than 5.7,
and
it's just better.
And it costs a third a round of what 5.7 costs. And
you get to use a 9mm breech face.
That's true. So if you can put it in Glocks, and 1911 is what it was designed around.
Right.
It's quite enjoyable.
The 9R, which is kind of a funny thing.
I've got more schemes, 22 TCM involved that are cooking because it's so good. I fell in love with the cartridge. With 22 TCM shill.
Yeah, but I wonder if they're pulling back. Some of the parts became less available, so I do wonder. I hope they don't pull back because it's a cool cartridge.
They best not.
My favorite thing about this whole thing is that, people often, Mr. Paul Harrell did the video about, he was testing like surplus spicy 7.62 Tok against body armor. And I remember it doing pretty well.
It pretty reliably can get through 3A.
Yeah. And it's just like, how crazy is that we go through all this stuff to try to design, NATO, but try to design a handgun cartridge, whereas they can, be effective against body armor. Whereas 7.62 Tok is literally the case is the first ever like commercial self-loading pistol cartridge. Some people don't know this. 7.62 Tokarev is the same case as 7.63 Mauser, which is the same case as 7.65 Borchardt.
Which was like the grandfather of them all. Like that that ended up spawning 30 Luger as well, which spawned 9mm. They all have a common ancestor. Yeah.
And like the only difference between Borchardt, Mauser, and Tokarev is just how spicy it is.
Right.
But that case, it's the same freaking case. And it works good. It is kind of amazing how firearms technology kind of like, we almost had it all figured out in the 1890s. I mean, even like they were on to 6.5 and 7mm by then.
Right.
Like they were onto it. But evil American interest kept saying, "No, big bore. Make it big."
35.
Yeah. And then the good French businessmen like Dodatow were out there telling South American countries, no, don't worry, we'll make your 11mm Mausers into perfectly good modern firearms in a 6.5 caliber. Just change the barrels and then leave them. Anyway, next up, this is an interesting little story here. So something happened in Montana. One of the bigger gun shops in Montana got raided by not ATF alone, but ATF with the IRS, 20 IRS agents armed, shuts the store down and steals all the 4473s. Like the IRS took them.
I wonder what's going on with that one. That's going to be an interesting one to see for all the more details.
Yeah, because there's got to be something has to be happening here, right? Yeah, Rosendale stated that this is stormtrooper type activity. I met with Tom Van Hoos this morning after 20 armed IRS agents raided his store in Great Falls early this week. Tom informed me that these agents confiscated all the 4473 forms, none of which contain any financial information. Instead, the IRS now has access to those forms with sensitive personal details of every customer who purchases a firearm from Highwood Creek Outfitters. And you see, there's Tom. That's a gun shop owner if I've ever seen one.
That's true.
With the leather vestlet. But yeah, that's interesting. So hopefully they will be coming out with more information on that one, because that is a thing.
Like I can't even think of a reasonable explanation why this would be done.
So this is what the Rosendale wrote to Mr. Dettelbeck and IRS Commissioner Verfel 2 days after the raid. Well, we would wait to hear more details and rationale behind this raid. Given the positions of the Biden administration, this raid appears to be an attempt to intimidate firearm dealers and owners. This is particularly worrying given that it comes just weeks after the ATF closed a gun store in Cobb County, Georgia, without any advance warning. A pattern of intimidation and harassment seems to be emerging under Director Dettelbach's leadership of the ATF. This pattern appears to be orchestrated directly from the White House, as evident by the fact sheet released by the Biden administration, where they detail their plans to hassle mom-and-pop gun shops over minor record keeping and paperwork discrepancies. I mean, fair.
Yeah, that's about it.
That is fair. This next one's it upsets me. So it was posted to Ammo Land by the well-known author NRAHQ. I don't know who that is. You know? NRAHQ. NRAHQ. It must be some kind of Spanish. But they wrote that Tennessee voters prefer enforcing existing laws to red flag laws. And so the interesting thing here was they tried to like fact shift this article into some form of fundraising, right? But it's way buried down here what the actual survey that was given to Tennessee folks said. And so the survey presented Tennesseans with the following questions, right? Question: if a person is threatening to harm themselves or others, what do you think law enforcement should do to provide the most safety for the community? 1. Remove the individual threatening to harm others from the community so they cannot access firearms or cause harm by any other means. Or 2, take away that person's firearms, but leave threatening individuals in the community. That is not an honestly written question.
No, it is not.
This is, and so they're saying this about how Tennesseans don't want the red flag laws, which right, I you know what? No one likes red flag laws. Yeah, red flag laws are awful, but they're saying like an overwhelming 84% supported incapacitating the person threatening harm. And so naturally, NRA takes this to say, no, they want to see existing laws enforced. Well, I don't think that means you jump from, red flag laws would have people, have their firearms taken away, and that's bad. So what you actually want is for us to just randomly lock people in cages whenever, like, this threatening information comes through. Is that not the implication that's there?
That's really what it seems like. It's a dishonest polling, regardless of whose side it ends up being in favor and should be called out for what it is.
Yeah. So yeah, then there was another question. The state of Tennessee already has many laws in the books that allow for the arrest and immediate detention of someone who is threatening violence or deemed dangerous to themselves or others by a law enforcement officer or licensed physician or psychologist. Is it a more effective solution to 1, enforce existing laws to remove individuals threatening to harm others from the community, 2, enact new red flag laws to take firearms from individuals, or 3, makes no difference? And so naturally, which one did...
All right.
Yeah, they preferred the enforce existing laws, which may or may not exist, right, to incarcerate all the bullheads, the bull cuts. If anything, it highlights the fact that a law that would result in you being civilly committed, right, or arrested for just speech behavior, right, I think is far more problematic.
Yes.
Than because the removal of your firearms is a total deprivation of one civil right. The locking you in a cage is a total deprivation of all of your rights.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks NRA HQ for telling us that Tennessee voters prefer enforcing existing laws over red flag laws.
Yeah, Tennessee voters prefer you losing all your rights to just losing your Second Amendment rights.
Yeah, go Tennessee. That must be why they keep electing that governor. Really. Speaking of your rights, it is your right to produce art. Purchase it at MAF Corporation. There is new stuff in stock. The M11 wind chime kit is in stock. It's in stock. And there's the Long Boy Edition 16-inch side traging model here. It's available for sale. There's also headspaced Romanian pattern Plastikov kits. These are on the finest quality Polish chrome-lined hammer-forged barrels that are available for sale. You can get all the different options, and everything it ships immediately. So check it out. Just go look through. There's stuff there for sale. You can buy it. It's available. And use promotional code FRN, that's Foxtrot Romeo November, for a discount. You're going to want a discount on those items. So next up, we got the Third Circuit staying a portion of an injunction of New Jersey's attempt to reverse Bruen, basically the carry killer, as they talked about it. So, of course, concealed carry is one of the most active fronts of litigation post Bruen. And as so many states after Bruen came down passed obviously unconstitutional laws, like most of these focused on carry in sensitive spaces. So New Jersey's was one of the most aggressive right after, and it banned carrying on like private property, parks, libraries, restaurants, entertainment houses, and more. Enforcement of this was enjoined, but this week, in this kind of like back and forth battle of attrition, part of that injunction was stayed, and thus some of those sensitive places, such as public gatherings, are back to being prohibited or prohibitable. So it's such a the seesawing, right?
I feel like this only ends one way, and I think I talked about this whenever we were discussing this with New York's Bruen response bill. I think the only way this ends is that the Supreme Court puts carry in a straitjacket, and they're obviously loath to do that because they had the chance to do it already. That I feel like the way that they end up doing this is because the furthest extent that they've gone to say that there's a straitjacket so far is some insistence that you have to either be able to carry openly or concealed. You can't just be flat out prohibited from having guns in public. But the game that these states are playing is a really idiotic game of chicken, because they've seen how the Supreme Court feels, and poking and prodding them as New York very obviously was attempting to do, and New Jersey is now as well. Seems like a losing tactic to me, where the only way this ends up going is the Supreme Court will clarify exactly what they meant by not everywhere can be a sensitive place. So they'll just give you a list where it's like, okay, these 5 are sensitive places, nothing else is. Go away.
Right. Yeah, I do think that that's quite a likely outcome. And of course, the Supreme Court hates engaging in that type of I always call it judicial legislation, right? Except when it loves doing it, right?
Right.
but yeah, so that's just something we've got to watch, and it's just sucks that it's such a painful back and forth attritive battle for these people who live in these hells, in these northern hells.
Mark Smith's analysis, the Four Boxes Diner guy, he's said a couple of times now that he thinks it's very likely that the Supreme Court will have to at least take 2 gun cases in this coming session. And I think I tend to agree. And one of them is guaranteed to be probably the case out of New York specifically, where
they literally said it's an anti-Bruin bill.
Right, they're blatantly disregarding what the Supreme Court did, and they've said everything short of "we disagree with the Supreme Court" and are intentionally violating what they said. And I mean, there's
didn't
no
Coach Scholl actually say that they were striking back against the Supreme Court?
I think so. I've seen rhetoric to that extent, where it's I feel like if I was her lawyer, I would advise her to keep my mouth shut and pretend that Bruin didn't happen, and not mention it publicly. Because you're making it, the more obvious you make it that you're flouting.
They can't help themselves,
right?
They can't, because it's become. And let's be honest, the Supreme Court has become political, right?
Right.
Like the fact that it's politicking in our favor. Well, because we are right.
Right.
Like objectively, and that actually kind of plays into the stuff we're getting into in a moral sense. We are right. Yep. But it is a politic game, and it's just getting worse every single day. But so yeah, I kind of like to segue into this next thing. This is from a OSD open source defense article about Chesterton's fence. And I always like things like this because it's like analogical, legal, philosophical goalposting, right? And it kind of helps to keep your talons sharp like that, because you can't just keep saying the Second Amendment says shall not, right? You if you want to actually win people over, you got to be a little more convincing, right? So here's where they talk about the case for gun rights is pretty simple. If someone is trying to hurt you, you have the right to stop them. And by extension, you're the person who's in the best position to say how to stop them. And this is his extrapolation from G.K. Chesterson's Why I Am a Catholic. He introduced this decision-making principle. So this is what they call Chesterson's fence. In the matter of reforming things, as distinct from deforming them, there is one plain and simple principle, a principle which will probably be called a paradox. There exists in such case a certain institution or law. Let us say, for the sake of simplicity, a fence or gate erected across a road. The more modern type of reformer goes gaily up to it and says, I don't see the use of this. Let us clear it away. To which the more intelligent type of reformer will do well to answer, if you don't see the use of it, I certainly won't let you clear it away. Go away and think. Then, when you can come back and tell me that you do see the use of it, I may allow you to destroy it.
I kind of like that. That makes sense. And you certainly see it shine through in a rhetoric, especially surrounding the gun debate, where it's oftentimes as literal as, I don't understand why anyone would want these things, let's ban them.
Right. And that's where it comes up to this line. That's why it's interesting. If you're a person who cannot perceive the utility of something, and you're arguing for the violent enforcement of a prohibition thereupon, you're on and you see that you're not, it's not like you're arguing for the removal of pathogens and things, right? There are people forcefully arguing against you. If you can't stop and say, there must be some utility here, right? There must be some reason I'm being fought on this. Well, then you're not a person who should be engaging in those types of decisions.
Of course, I think it was Washington Post recently had a article that was why are Americans buying guns? The coronavirus, Asian and black people bought lots of guns. Mm-hmm. This is bad. Let's find out why they bought guns. And you know who they went and asked? A bunch of white liberal professors. They've asked them why Asian people are buying guns. Yeah. Because they're authorities on the thoughts of everyday Asian people. White liberal professors from anti-gun think tanks are experts on that. And so, of course, it was just a bunch of like a bunch of just like presumptive, condescending nonsense is the answers that they published. Where it's like, well, instead of looking at why people should buy a gun, we should look at what kind of people want to buy a gun. They're paranoid. They're paranoid. Who could want something like this? Like just a whole bunch of, I guess, holier art thou.
Right. And that's something that is often seen in interpersonal relationships. If you're describing someone else's choices based on character traits rather than anything else, right? It's a signal that you have a bad argument. If you go immediately to a person's, intelligence or like those traits, it shows that you're the person who's missing the point.
Right.
Because usually people don't make decisions based solely on their personality traits, right? They're influencing factors. And so I like the way they wrap this up. It's not that a gun control law even needs to deliberately tear down that people have a right to defend themselves. It's that the law sees a fence in a field labeled gun rights, bulldozes that fence with good intentions, and then replaces it with a new fence called gun control, and lacks real knowledge of why the old fence performs better at safeguarding people's ability to defend themselves. So that's pretty slick, pretty nice thought stuff there. I appreciate you, open source defense.
That's thought provoking. I hate it.
Chesterson. Yeah, I hate it.
I don't like the thing.
You know what else is thought provoking?
Guns.
What if the power grid goes down?
That's true. That makes me think. One round of 50 caliber HABE.
No, you could keep the phone on when the power is out. This pocket-sized solar charger could be your lifeline in an emergency. Let's shop it with 4 Patriots. Let's see what the price is, because it's only $99. And with promotional code FRN, that's Foxtrot Romeo November, we could get 10% off a 4-pack of these, or a 1-pack is only. Oh no, I don't want to. What's a 1-pack cost? $29.95. That's ridiculous. It's been featured on Fox and Friends. Why would you not be purchasing the Patriot Power Cell registered trademark from 4 Patriot Supply Company? They sell food too, and the seeds. Hold on. Hey, Sam, look. They got the Victory Garden Seed Vault. What do you think of that? What do you think?
I saw a picture on Facebook.
Look, you got 9,919 seeds for $29.95.
That's a lot of seeds.
It's a lot of seeds. Who would not purchase this? Look, we could be like him.
Be a farmer.
You could be the farm man. So I think you think we should go on there and use code FRN?
Yep, you man. Seeds.
Yeah, I'm the seed guy.
I saw a picture that said that Joe Biden wants to take all of our seed.
No, no, he can't have it.
Yeah, there was a cow, and he was milking the cow, all the seed right out of the cow. And the cow was labeled us. He wants to take our seed.
Guys, if you want to stop Joe Biden from taking all your seed, go to 4 Patriots from all of your Glockstol seed. Go to 4patriots.com and use code FRN.
Aim for the cooling fans.
The cooling fans. It's right behind the little crowd. All right. Next up. So did you see this this Matrix Arms, right? They were making an aluminum framed Glock for a minute.
Why?
So this is hard for me because I'm a simp for steel framed guns. Like when Walther came out with the Q5 steel frame, I was just rolling around, I was rolling on my back. I was like, let me have one, right? Like I will totally roll over for steel framed handguns. And Matrix Arms, they made a splash when they came out with a machined aluminum Glock 19. But now they've come out with a Glock 34 length firearm with a steel frame. And I hate it.
Yeah, I don't get it. Are those?
It's got a 5.7 length grip. Like, why is that so long?
Does it have screws through the frame there?
Yes.
Or please do not tell me this is a clamshell frame. I will hate this.
It doesn't look that way.
I will hate this so much if this is a clamshell frame.
No, it can't be.
Okay.
But wait, so then
I don't
are
hate
they
it as much as I could? I could hate
there's
this
screws
more.
on both sides?
Yeah, I don't know. Screws to hold the
Torque
parts in
screws,
it.
which are
I don't get it.
Oh, look, security torques.
That's nice. That's what they needed.
Yeah. This is the Matrix Arms Invictus.
That's a thing. I don't like it.
Yeah, I hate it. Like I said, I will usually simp for something like this, but this is just dreadful. Oh, and then the price. Price.
Don't tell me. Don't tell me. I'm not going to look.
Yeah. All right, how much do you think it is?
$17.99.
Nobody.
Oh man.
Nobody. Starts out at $21.60 up to $27.90.
That's insane. That's actually insane.
That's junk. That's junk. It's ridiculous.
Because that data point on its own, it's not crazy because people will spend that much on a Glock. But if you're thinking steel frame handgun, what else can you buy for that price point?
The Q5 for like $1,500.
Right. The Q5, if you want to stick striker, if you want to go hammer STIs, right?
Yeah.
You can buy rather loaded, compensated with the lots of extra mags STIs for less than this costs.
Yeah.
And, I have a sneaking suspicion that because it's a Glock, it's not going to be there's a limit to how good of a trigger you can get in a Glock.
Right. Yes. Because it's a partially cocked
design.
striker. Yeah.
And there was one company that tried to quote unquote fix that, and those guns fired when you dropped them. And
I didn't read about that.
I know Glock's got their new match trigger. Maybe they're designing this around the Glock match trigger, but even the Glock match trigger is like what a 4-pound pull.
Oh, and
it's
on
still
top
not
of
that good.
On top of that, at over $2,000, you think it'd at least be made of 4140? It's fucking 1018.
Mild.
1018.
They're taking you for a ride with that one.
No texture on the steel. Yeah, it's fucking butter grade cheese steel.
For reference, for those of you keeping track at home, 1018 is like really soft. It's like silverware soft, and that's the hardest you can get it without like surface hardening treatments, which almost assuredly they probably aren't going to opt for here. So,
right, and it's not like is it silverware soft? Like there are some receivers that are made of 1018, but it's like it's not a material that exudes ultra premium.
At least with something that's going to be thin and then be subject to Glocks do put a significant amount of force on their frame that you might not think about it just looking at how they work.
Yeah.
Of course, they're probably integrating the frame rails and stuff, and I haven't seen the internals, so I don't know.
It seems like where those screws are seems awfully rail-like to me. So those I would be concerned about if you do have force coming up on where those screws come in. I think it would totally egg the holes if it was 1018.
If I agree. If they aren't having rails be integral, what is the point of milling?
Look at those screws. There's no way.
Like,
there's no way.
The one advantage I can see is the fact that having your steel frame means you can make the rails integral, means that you'll have the butter smooth slide the frame fitment that steel frames can afford.
Look where the screws are. There's no way the rails are integral. Unless whoever designed this was on that deluxe junk, right?
They're in awfully convenient spots for them to be holding in rails.
And a locking block. Like, what would this one be for? If not to, why would that be there?
Holding in a rail. I don't know.
Yeah, because you've got your fire control pin in the normal spot. And these are just holding on the dipshit side covers. It's like, oh, you're going to spend all that money on a steel frame and put plastic side panels on it? Like, sorry, bad gun. Sorry.
He has spoken.
It's over. Of course it's bad gun. It's American.
Here's innovation. We took an Austrian gun and made it worse.
All right. Well, okay. Speaking of bad gun, we don't just crap on American guns here.
That's true.
Let's talk about the AK-12 update.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so the AK-12, that's a fascinating thing, right, as an AK guy, isn't it?
It's really weird. And then there was this oddly timed, and I think it was just everybody who was a part of the the Leviathan group, that them being an advertising and publicizing agency for that sponsors or works with.
Right. All these gun tubers.
It owns a bunch of gun tubers and tells them what to say. Is the doomer way of looking at that. But they all sort of at the same time had videos about the AK-12 where they sort of shit on it. And as much as I want to agree, there are objective design things on the AK-12 that are just bad, that don't make sense. There's
some of them they didn't even hit on.
Right. Well, some of them true. Some of them they didn't even touch on.
Right.
But some of the things they're talking about, as far as the fit and finish or the quality of the guns, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the AK-12 parts kits that are here in the U.S. came from blank firing guns that were cut up in Russia and imported under questionable circumstances.
And on top of that, they were like the prevailing theory right now is that these were all of the guns that were blank guns,
or do the blank guns get
rejects.
blim parts? Right.
Yeah,
the blank guns get blim parts, and that's not something that's like new or novel. Like the cutaway
if
guns.
You're talking about fit and finish on an AK. Shut up.
The cutaway guns that have been done since forever for like training or demonstration purposes were blim guns that they put together that didn't run right or wouldn't feed. They're the guns that they can't give to a military or troops or sell or whatever is applicable there. And so they cut away at the gun and then make it a little cutaway model. And so that's cool. Blank firing guns, as I understand it in Russia, are no different. Where the blank firing VSSs were the same way that actual VSSs aren't as they aren't as crummy as the parts kits that ended up showing up here.
Although the design of the VSS Striker is like shocking.
Yeah, the VSS itself, whenever if you ever get the opportunity to hold one, you'll probably not want one anymore. It's kind of funny. Like you want it because it's unobtainium. You probably don't want it because it's good.
Yeah, then you hold it and you're like, ooh.
I believe this is a blank firing gun because it's airsoft quality. Oh, this is made from real parts though?
Yep. But so one of the big thing is like the way they tried to weasel in the 2-round burst selector.
That was so weird.
They got rid of the over travel stop. And so then you wound up seeing, defeated Russian troopers with their safeties all the way down, which I don't know. I always thought that was kind of an odd thing, especially for a country like Russia to do. Like removing an important soldier proofing thing. But it looks like the AK-12 update, I don't know, it kind of looks good.
You know what would make it look good if they went back to the Abacan prototype?
Yeah,
that was such a good looking gun.
Clean, right? But so they did make the dust cover. It's no longer you have to reach up to operate it. It's ambidextrous, which is cool. So it's thumb operated, both sides.
Yep.
And the one change I didn't quite understand is the dust cover now completely locks the bolt forward when it's on safe, which kind of sucked because having your AK on safe, it was a great way to chamber check it.
Right.
So that I don't understand. It must have been causing confusion. And they've got an UGG boot stock, which
that's I'm not sure what the utility there is, especially because they haven't been putting optics on their guns. So I don't know why you'd need a riser, but I hate risers. Okay.
Yeah. The rear sight looks pretty dope. And then we can see we've got a Galil style, Galil / Beryl reinforce on the dust cover so that your rear sight can hold 0. But I will say, I don't know, some of this stuff is really thoughtful. Oh, and see here, all of you idiots who ruin your AKs with tactical stuff. Wow, the front rail's not metal. I wonder why. I wonder why there isn't a piece of metal, a piece of conductive metal right on the hottest part of the gun. I wonder why the Russians would do this.
Who knows? We should put a laser right above the gas block, though.
But, what do you think of the AK-12 update?
I think the changes
submissive and clonable.
Submissive and clonable. I think the changes address some of the things that were maybe most egregious with it. That said, I don't know. At least from the standpoint of what Russia's busy trying to do right now, I don't know that this isn't too little, too late. Because changes on a gun like this are somewhat difficult to roll out, especially when you're they're making big changes to core parts of the gun. Like if they're changing your fire control part, certainly that's something that's going to take a while to roll out and a while for things to show up. And so while it is an improvement, that's one of those things where unless you're very vertically integrated as far as how your government is acquiring arms, like the US was in World War II, little changes take forever to ever actually show up or make a difference. Because even if you create 10,000 of these guns in its first production year, which is sometimes difficult if you're rolling out a lot of changes at once, 10,000 guns is a drop in the bucket.
What is this here? What is this?
I thought that was their new SVD replacement thing.
Yeah, why is it so awful?
I don't know.
Look how they massacred my boy.
put that ugly old bipod on there.
They put that and they kept the same miserable mags.
Yeah,
like the SVD mags are. By the way, I like my SVD. The mags are the worst. Like changing those mags quickly, it's just not happening.
it's M14 pilled in that regard.
It is.
It's impossible to get the mags in there without going, huh?
Yeah, without like very intentional nose in. Right. It's not as bad as the M14, which is one of the worst mag changes ever because it's an American gun, but it's pretty up there. But yeah, so that's interesting. I just thought that was worth a look. All right, guys. Important plug, as you know, this channel is powered by Second Amendment Foundation. For nearly 50 years, the Second Amendment Foundation has been fighting for your Second Amendment rights. Having been involved in over 250 cases and an active load of over 40 lawsuits, SAF has the expertise and experience necessary to fight government overreach and challenge unconstitutional laws. SAF, winning firearms freedoms one lawsuit at a time. To learn more or donate, check the link in the description or go to bit.ly/SAF Busters. They gave me my own link. Can you believe that? That was kind of them.
This is big.
Yeah, check them out. All right. So this next one's interesting. Handgun defense against bears. In 170 documented incidents, 98% effectiveness. Now, what's the takeaway there?
Effectiveness. Is that a desirable outcome?
Yeah, I think it means the person did not die or the bear went away. You know,
I think it would mean that bears are easily frightened away.
So the thing that worries me is that people are going to take this new information that came out, which is, it's cool that it came out, and be like, see, all you need is a handgun.
Yeah, get into a gunfight with a bear. I'm interested. Does it tell you how many instances?
Well, 170 documented incidents.
That's more than I would have thought. Okay.
We discovered handgun failures in defense against bears are rare. Successful uses of handguns to defend against bears are about 50 times as common as handgun failures. Handguns have been shown to be an effective tool to use against bears 98% of the time. So the thing is, it's the availability heuristic. You're going to have more documented incidences of handgun use against bears because people tend to carry handguns. So a lot of people citing this new data are touting how effective handguns have been in defense against the bear. And it's good to hear that those handgun deployments were effective, but it should not lead you to ditch a trail carbine. Like, if you're going somewhere where an encounter with a bear is probable, or even like, possible, or like, more than totally outlandish, I feel like it's better to have a carbine with you.
I think that's a logically defensible point. Like if you're I think even on the show we've crapped on the idea of truck guns a little bit because leaving a gun in your truck isn't great. But there's certainly parts of the country that are rural enough that everybody who's going to see your truck while it's parked there, and they're not going to come and steal your gun. Mm-hmm. And that if you were to get stranded in a snowbank or what have you, and a bear were to decide that you look like a snack, I would much rather have a rifle than a handgun in such an instance. And so then I can certainly agree, truck gun is no longer a bad idea and is kind of actually a good one.
Or if you're intentionally going out, you know how white people like to go out and pretend to be homeless, right? Like white people love spending thousands of dollars on Patagonia boots and like the little hand things to go out into the woods and pretend to not have a house.
I believe it's called Haijing. It's Chinese. Kampong.
Yeah, if you're doing that stupid shit, you probably should. I mean, I think a Mini 30 is a great thing for that.
Mini 30 is a pretty good one.
Mini 30 is a great thing for that. I mean, cast parts, whatever. Obviously, put a stock on your Draco.
Put a stock on your Draco.
You're unbeatable. All the bears are going to be like, don't go there.
In fact, I have it on good authority that if you show up in the woods to a bear den with the Draco with a stock, they will actually recognize you as their leader, and you'll be able to have an army of mechanized bears.
You get to ride the bears at that point.
You get to ride the bears.
This is legal advice. Yeah.
This is legal advice.
You get to ride the bear to rob the other people and just...
That's true. And you become the bear king.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, this camp, no Drake, stupid handgun user.
Yeah, the 2% of times that handguns weren't effective against bears just because those bears had a bear king that was armed by a Draco. His stupid handgun user got wiped out.
Cleaned squad one.
Also, hang on. There's a surprising number of people who go missing in the woods or national parks or whatever, right? There's a website I believe that tracks this sort of thing. This 2% of people who had unsuccessful relationships with the bears, I wonder how big that number is actually people who had like very unfortunate relationships with the bears and became a snack and they didn't find them.
Yeah, or like they found the handgun.
They're just like, we don't know what happened here. And X number of cases that would move that number from 98 to a different number.
Yeah, because it doesn't become a documented firearm use if you just get deleted.
Right, if you're just deleted and then nobody finds you, then...
Yeah. No, by the way, guys, on the Draco front, I'll give you a little hint. Keep an eye on MAF. Keep an eye on MAF. And also, Patriot Patch Company. Patriot Patch Company has custom designed patches, apparel, and accessories for any freedom-loving individual. Of course, they'd know freedom because they get banned from all the social medias. Join the Patch of the Month Club. Go on there, get a little serotonin boost every month. Get the June exclusive, which is the funny shotgun with the fireworks on it. Mine fell off my microphone. But I have it here. It's always nice to see little patch come in. And if you use promotional code TWIG10, that's TWIG10, you will get a discount on your order. So go to patriotpatch.co and check them out. All right, that's all the stories for today, my boys.
No.
Anything else to add?
There's not a single more news to add. I guess if you guys want to set your calendary dues to the 29th, there's going to be three big lawsuits happening. There's one in the forgotten land of California, and I think it's their handgun roster case doing some oral arguments in the court, and then there's the pistol brace case in the Tennesseans pistol brace case. And then there's the Illinois assaulting weapons ban is all going to be heard on the 29th, and all the hearings are going to be going on at the same time. So you'll have to pick which one's the most interesting and listen in. Yeah. But it'll be and I guess I want to give him a shout out because I think what he does is awesome. Rob Romano over on Twitter, whose handle is 2A Updates.
He does post a lot of stuff.
He's usually very up to speed, and I'm sure he's got a very handy notification tracker that helps him stay up to date. But he posts good updates on the lawsuits and stuff, and I'm sure he'll be live tweeting, and if not, retweeting people who are live tweeting what goes on in these arguments if you're not able to listen in. I at least think it's super cool, to sort of be there as close to in the moment as you can when these things are unfolding.
And he is a cool guy too, Rob.
The last hope that I have for our sacred democracy is in the courts, which is probably misguided, and I should give up all hope. But
I don't know. But we'll keep trying. And of course, if you don't want to do all that, just wait till next week and we'll update you. Okay?
That's true. We'll do a next week. We'll do a big notable next week.
Okay. All right, everybody. We will see you next time.